The following is produced by 5 Star Productions USA, which is solely responsible for its editorial content.
It clogs our nation's skies. It can cost us billions in health care. Air pollution. One of the biggest contributors is traffic. Vehicles powered by petroleum congest our highways and poison our clean air. Environmental and economic concerns are growing. Why not stop the problem at the source? Well, one car manufacturer is doing just that. In this special edition of Today's Environment, we'll see how Ford Motor Company is building flexible fuel vehicles that utilize a cleaner, more cost-effective fuel called ethanol. And we'll introduce many experts that have joined the effort to make ethanol the fuel of choice. So stay with us as we present a real solution to an ongoing problem. Next on Today's Environment.
The United States has developed a dependence on petroleum that may be harming the nation in many ways. Our consumption of oil destroys the air quality, damages our health, and could ravage the economy. Hi, I'm Jordan Adams, and welcome to Today's Environment. In this special edition, we're going to examine our need for energy diversity and sustainability, and we'll take an in-depth look at a cleaner, more renewable fuel called ethanol.
Currently, nearly 100 million people live in areas where the ozone level exceeds the clean air standards set by the EPA. Although newer cars have been improving in their emission profiles for the last 2 decades, highway traffic still accounts for a significant portion of the nation's air pollution concern. Some experts have estimated that healthcare costs linked to air pollution are about $45 billion annually. Polluted air and health costs related to air pollution are not the only expenses we pay for our oil. We consume over 120 billion gallons of gasoline a year and must import over half of that. It's a perilous formula when you consider that 2/3 of the world's oil reserves are located in the Middle East, and our need to import is expected to grow to over 60% of demand by the year 2010. Currently, our dependence on oil adds about $70 billion a year to our trade deficit, which accounts for about 20% of that imbalance.
Our dependence on foreign oil has a tremendous impact on our economy. Most people don't realize that last year we spent $50 billion a year just sending money overseas to pay for oil. And our transportation sector is the most dependent on foreign oil that it's ever been.
Even if oil did not contribute such enormous environmental and economic burdens, it's a limited resource that's not renewable. About 97% of the world's known oil is already in production, and all remaining supplies could be depleted in just a few decades. The Federal Clean Air Act and the Energy Policy Act of 1992, as well as progressive clean air laws in California, encourage energy diversity and improved air quality. In answer to these mandates, alternative fuel vehicles, like this flexible fuel Ford Ranger, have begun to emerge as potential solutions that may allow us to drive more environmentally friendly and ultimately rely less on imported oil.
You alone can wipe out 10 pounds of carbon dioxide emissions every year for the rest of your life and beyond with one simple act: plant a tree. Get involved with Today's Environment today.
Coming up, what are the alternative fuels available today and how do they compare to E85? Also, we'll show you how some waste products are being converted into ethanol. Driving a car powered by anything other than gasoline may sound like a futuristic idea, but there are actually many viable alternatives available today, and there are many others that will become a reality in the not-too-distant future. There are several types of alternative fuels. They include compressed natural gas, or CNG, electricity, propane, ethanol, and hydrogen. Compressed natural gas is a mixture of hydrocarbons, mainly methane. It's produced as a byproduct of drilling for crude oil and refining it. CNG has a more favorable emission profile than gasoline. Many fleet vehicles fueled by CNG, like taxis, buses, and delivery trucks, are already in use today. Electricity is a fuel that's produced by power plants. The pollution created by this fuel is at the source, or the smokestack of the power plant, which can be easier to control than millions of tailpipes. Electric vehicles may become more common as advancing battery technology improves the speeds and distances they can travel without recharging. Propane is produced as a byproduct of crude oil production and natural gas processing. It's been used as a transportation fuel for more than 60 years. There are currently about 350,000 propane-powered vehicles on the road, mostly in fleets. CNG, propane, and to some extent electricity are derived from a non-renewable, limited natural resource. One important goal for energy independence and diversity is sustainability, and that's where fuels derived from renewable resources, like ethanol, become very important.
Well, ethanol is a simple alcohol that's made from the natural fermentation of sugars that you find in plants and crops. Making ethanol from sugars is technology that you can find in the first records of recorded history for mankind. If you consider the regular unleaded gasoline you get out of your pump at an octane rating of about 85, pure ethanol comes in at an octane rating of about 120. So in fact, it's used in the premium grades of gasoline to boost its octane rating.
If you wanted to pick the ideal fuel for transportation, you would want a fuel that burns cleanly and has low emissions, that you can make from resources that we have right here at home, that we're not dependent on finite supplies of fossil fuels, and we don't have to import it. Ethanol meets all those criteria.
A renewable alternative fuel source that has lower greenhouse gas emissions, can be produced domestically, and may even reduce landfill waste, just has to be explored in greater detail. We'll take a closer look at ethanol and find out why it just might be today's fuel of the future.
There's nothing new about ethanol. Henry Ford used it in his first Model T. Now it's used as an additive in much of the gasoline today to help enhance octane and help it burn cleaner.
We have done a lot of field testing of vehicles that are operating on ethanol, and we have a fair amount of data that shows that hydrocarbons and carbon monoxide, which are really important smog-generating air pollutants, are substantially lower when the vehicle is being operated on ethanol as compared to gasoline.
Lower emissions make a strong argument for continued development of ethanol as an alternative fuel. But there are several other factors that make the emergence of this energy resource attractive. One of the greatest potential benefits of expanded ethanol production is the creation of American jobs and the boon this industry could be to the U.S. economy. Full-scale ethanol production could increase net farm income by $4.5 billion annually, create nearly 200,000 new jobs, improve the U.S. trade balance by $2 billion, increase federal funds by around $3.6 billion, and raise state tax revenues by $450 million. Right now, most of the ethanol produced comes from corn.
One of the issues about ethanol is whether or not it imposes a potential threat on our food supply. And in fact, ethanol is really a byproduct of the processing of corn. We're only using the starch component of the corn to make ethanol, and what's left over in the form of protein and other carbohydrates are processed into other food products and into animal feed. Today, in the processes used to make ethanol from corn, we can get about 2.5 gallons of ethanol per bushel of corn brought in from the field.
Any biomass can be used, including the organic waste products from sugarcane or rice harvest, some of which are often burned and cause serious environmental concerns. Ethanol may even be processed from the biomass destined for landfills, like paper and yard waste, and this could eventually reduce landfill waste by as much as 20%.
Well, the biggest issue for ethanol today and the biggest hurdle it has to overcome if it wants to grow in the marketplace as a fuel is its cost. Today, ethanol sells on the market for anywhere from $1 to $1.40 a gallon. We actually try to compare the cost of ethanol on a pre-tax basis, so blenders and retailers know what they're looking at for cost. The work that we're doing in our laboratory and other researchers are doing in the U.S. is aimed at developing processes that will at least cut that cost of ethanol production in half over the next 10 years or so.
Next, projects are being launched for mass production of ethanol, and how advantageous are flexible fuel vehicles for both the consumer and the environment. Stay tuned.
Currently, more than 1.5 million gallons of ethanol, or E85, are being produced each year. The continued growth of this alternative fuel is expanding the market for U.S. corn growers. There's also a great deal of research being conducted to produce this energy from other renewable raw materials.
For the first time, we can replace what is typically utilized in manufacturing the product, corn, with waste materials. In this particular case down in Louisiana, we're taking the waste from the sugarcane industry called bagasse, and in addition, rice hulls and rice straw, which would be available and typically thrown into a landfill pile. We have a facility that is currently under development. This facility will also produce approximately 25 million gallons with the capacity to expand to some 150 million gallons given the availability of material.
Household waste and sewage sludge are also providing biomass that's used to produce cleaner fuels. Masada Oxenol converts household garbage and sewage sludge to ethanol.
The Masada Oxenol process provides fundamental solutions to chronic environmental problems that every community faces sooner or later. It allows communities to avoid landfilling, land application, and incineration while converting or recycling over 90% of the garbage and sludge streams.
In addition to producing the cleaner burning fuel ethanol, the Masada Oxenol process safely destroys the dangerous pathogens found in garbage and sludge. Heavy metals are also safely removed.
There's no longer any need to store the garbage in landfill indefinitely. It is now permanently disposed.
The Quincy Library Group was also formed where environmentalists and loggers are collaborating to convert wood waste into energy.
It's an interesting story where you have a group of environmentalists, several local logging companies, and state officials, all of whom recognize the serious problem with these devastating wildfires that occur, and now are taking and wiping out total forests. The Department of Energy and the federal government as a whole have realized that the development of biofuels in the biomass industry is vital to the U.S. economic growth, energy security, and environmental protection. And as a result, the Department of Energy has played an active role in creating and expanding this industry in the United States.
We've discussed at length the potential of developing the industry for ethanol 85 as an alternative to unleaded gasoline. But successful adoption of this fuel doesn't stop at production. We need vehicles that can use this fuel as well.
You may be surprised to know that there are already many vehicles on the road that can run on either unleaded gasoline or E85. If you bought a 3-liter Ford Taurus with the flex fuel option or a Ranger with a 3-liter engine within the last 2 years, you have the choice of putting any combination of unleaded gasoline or E85 in your tank whenever you fill up. The engines of these flexible fueled vehicles are designed to detect the fuel mixture and adjust automatically, and the sticker prices are about the same as regular fueled vehicles. By the year 2000, Ford will have produced over 500,000 of these E85 flexible fuel vehicles. And many other major manufacturers may provide FFV products in the future.
It's important for us to continue building these vehicles so that we could get enough vehicles into the market to be a critical mass to encourage the fuel providers to to build stations and provide a method for customers to fuel their vehicle with the ethanol fuel.
If there's another oil crisis or if prices go up, the best thing we have going for us is competition. If we've got these thousands or maybe even millions of flexible fuel vehicles on the road, the next time folks want to raise the price of oil, they're going to have to contend with the competition from ethanol.
It's important that auto manufacturers continue to build flexible fuel vehicles so that consumers can use fuels that may be more environmentally and economically positive. One important question consumers have about alternative fuels is, will the vehicle perform as well using a fuel other than gasoline?
Our ethanol vehicles are performing well in the marketplace. We don't perceive any difference in durability or in performance to the gasoline versions. Primary customers for our alternative fuel vehicles are fleets, like government fleets and pool car fleets and large businesses and that sort of thing. And we've been able to learn a good deal from those programs because the vehicles are centrally maintained and we can get information on performance and durability.
A well-tuned car uses nearly 10% less gas. That translates to 10% less emissions from that one source. So schedule a tune-up and get involved with today's environment today.
Driving an alternative fuel vehicle isn't always a practical option. Now, although we have the fuel processing technology and even the vehicles themselves, the refueling infrastructure isn't quite widespread at this point. So what's being done to build the infrastructure that'll make E85 a viable option? We know that until alternative fuels are readily available, consumers will not accept them as reasonable options to gasoline. By year's end, there will be approximately 100 open E85 refueling stations in the United States.
I think the two key factors to gain a broader public acceptance of the vehicles are, first of all, the cost of the fuel. Ethanol is somewhat more expensive than gasoline when you take into account the 30% lower fuel economy than gasoline, and having outlets to refuel the vehicles in convenient locations.
What the Department of Energy is doing in partnership with the states and with industry is to build more refueling stations that offer the ethanol. We're doing this by focusing in several metropolitan areas where ethanol is already available, where the vehicles are available, and where folks really want to move forward with the ethanol fuel.
There are a number of proposals before the legislature in an effort to try to stimulate the use of this product. One proposal would be to essentially make it more available in terms of lower octane fuels, that type of thing. The legislature has been a little reluctant to mandate the use of this, so what we have to do is we have to make it more available, allow it to compete with other fuels, and begin a public relations campaign that educates people about the benefits of the fuel in terms of the use within their vehicle and to the environment.
In order to help foster the market for E85, there are often federal and state tax incentives available for opening or installing a fueling facility. Several states, including Illinois, Iowa, Colorado, Kentucky, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, have programs designed to increase production and retail distribution of E85.
By virtue of the Code of Iowa, we have a statutory requirement with reference to our fleet to use ethanol in our fleet, and then E85 has to be used, could be one of the vehicles for satisfying a requirement in the Code of Iowa. Secondly, we've got retail sales opportunities throughout the state in western Iowa and central Iowa and eastern Iowa, and we also have opportunities connected to our university systems.
Some auto manufacturers, like Ford, are contributing funds to offset the fuel retailers' E85 investment costs. One program aims to add 10 stations in Chicago and up to 30 in the Twin Cities area. There are also distributing fuel vouchers to flexible fuel vehicle owners who live within 10 miles of an E85 refueling station.
Right now, there is a subsidy in place at the federal level that saves about 50 cents per gallon of ethanol for the person who blends that into their gasoline.
It only takes about 200 of these flexible fuel vehicles to make a refueling station on ethanol profitable for the provider. We need to educate, we need to market the fuel, we need to make more folks aware that in all likelihood it's available at a refueling station in their neighborhood.
As the pumps begin to appear, people will become more and more aware of E85 and the economic and environmental bonus it carries with it. Hopefully, this will result in more and more pumps being installed until it's as easy to fill up on E85 as it is to fill up on unleaded gas.
If we can create the infrastructure from raw materials processing through retail distribution, we may be able to take advantage of the enormous benefits from this renewable alternative fuel. Thanks for watching this special edition. If you want more information about anything covered on this program, log on to our website at vstar.com. And join us again next time as we explore more positive solutions on today's environment.
This has been a presentation of 5 Star Productions USA, which is solely responsible for its editorial content.